You're watching Real Health, and thank you for staying with us. Neurolinguistic programming is proving to be a great tool when it comes to personal development, helping us communicate our thoughts, make informed decisions, and take charge of our lives. To help us better understand how this therapy can benefit our health, we have NLP practitioner and nutritional therapist Nikki Robertson in studio with us. Hi Nikki, it's so nice to have you with us today.
Thank you. Hi.
So let's just recap. I know we've spoken about it before on the show. NLP, what exactly is that?
So NLP is a fairly new science if you want to look at psychotherapy in its context. And what that really is understanding the conversation we have in our heads with ourselves every day. So it is understanding our thoughts and behaviors based on our values and our belief systems that inform what we do and how we think about the world.
So it's really about sort of understanding yourself, your reactions to things, your decision making around stresses, things like that?
Yeah, and these things are learned since childhood.
Yes.
So as we become conscious of the world around us, we have relationships. We have a relationship with our mom and dad. We see how they do things. We respond to them. How they respond back to us creates a behavior. So if they shout at us for doing something, we modify our behavior accordingly. And as we go through life, we learn that X response will get X result, and we create a behavior. Now those behaviors can either work for us or work against us. And when life isn't going so well and everything seems to be falling apart, we go, well, everything's wrong with the whole world, but we don't look at ourselves and how our responses to the world might be actually creating the world we're living in. In NLP, we say there's no failure, only feedback. You know, there's no unresourceful people, only unresourceful behaviors. So all of us are geared to change.
You
and
just have to learn how to deal.
We just got to first realize there's an issue. So the issue is almost always with us. And that's a lot of us don't want to admit that it's not
difficult
the boss.
To admit that.
It's me and how I interact with the boss. Because when we change the way we respond to the world has no option but to change the way it responds to us back in turn. So if you smile at somebody, they're going to smile at you because that's the way the brain works. So it's understanding that very primal, primitive survival patterning in the brain. And if we can understand that that's actually what's rowing the boat here and can work with it, life can be a lot more simple and a lot more pleasant.
Absolutely. Now there's an extension of NLP into now PNI. Do you want to explain that to us?
So again, this has been around for a long time. So what it looks at is NLP is our behaviors within the context of the world, but how does that affect our health? So the best description I can think of is if you were watching a horror movie, okay, you know it's not real, you know it's actually not even happening. If you had to really think about it, it's just a bunch of actors, but we go into something called state. So we watch this person walking down a passage and it's dark and there's music and immediately we get frightened. Our heart rate goes.
It's a physical reaction.
We have a physical reaction. We start shaking, our heart rate goes up, we get stressed, but there's no reality to this. However, what is happening in the body is a very real chemical reaction. So when we go through fear, and a lot of us do on a daily basis, just getting on a taxi, dealing with traffic, dealing with bosses, dealing with financial issues, we're living in a horror movie-like situation.
Make life sound such fun.
Every day. And it's our response to the world. It increases stress. It increases all sorts of things that create what we call inflammatory cytokines. So that experience of fear on a daily basis creates inflammation in the body. And inflammation is the basis for all disease. So for the immune system to be down-regulated, there has to be some degree of inflammation. And when that immune system is down-regulated, we become susceptible to bacterial infections, to viruses and all sorts of other kinds of autoimmune diseases, for example. But it goes upstream and starts with the way we perceive the world. Now that is really scary on one level because we feel like we have no control. And on the other hand, it gives us absolute control. So I'm not saying stress is bad, because stress is necessary and stress is good. It's more the feeling of hopelessness and helplessness.
When you have gone down that spiral and you just feel like you can't get anywhere.
Exactly. So that feeling of having no choices is what creates disease and ultimately premature death in some people. And I will go to that extent to say that because hopelessness really does destroy the immune system and makes us very vulnerable.
How do your genes affect this aspect of life and dealing with life?
Exactly. So up until a few years ago, we thought that our genetic inheritance was hardwired. That was it. If your family had cancer, you were going to get cancer. And if your family was obese, you were going to get obese. But what we've learned in the last, I'd say about 20 years, is that it is entirely our choice. What they say is that genetics is the bullet, in the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. So it's the environment we live in, and specifically the environment of our thinking, that will determine whether or not we make the choice to eat the cake, to open up that diabetes predeterminism.
Or become obese or whatever
exactly.
it might be.
So it is the stress situation we're living in, and also our relationships and what we choose to put in our bodies that will switch on and switch off that genetic predeterminism. But a lot of that comes down to our thinking. If I decide that I'm in control of my life and I'm going to make better choices, we can turn off our genes. And this is scientifically proven. Just like it's scientifically proven that a happy thought will create an endorphin. This is measurable. And a destructive thought will create an inflammatory cytokine. This is also measurable in blood, on brain scans. This is not, some strange idea.
It's not just theoretical stuff.
It's proven. It's in medical journals. So we are absolutely in control. And in this day and age, a lot of us don't want to be. We want to hand over our control to our doctor or to somebody else, and hopefully there's a pill that can make it all go away. And the big takeaway here is there is no pill. There's absolutely no pill you can take an antidepressant. That's not going to help. It might just numb down
kill the symptoms.
Or numb down the noise to stop us over and under responding. But that brings problems in and of itself because it switches off the happiness as well. So
one deals with another but kills the other.
Exactly.
Again, so you mentioned sort of taking control of your life and making the decision to take control of your life. What is the starting point? Where do you begin?
The starting point is to look for help. And I don't know why more people don't go out there and ask for help. There are so many practitioners out there and just normal people, when you start talking and realize you're not alone. How often do we spend time in our own dark thoughts thinking we're the only ones here, where everybody around us is having their dark thoughts?
And if we just share, it's quite a helpful experience.
We just shared, and we do not live in communities like we are supposed to. So the quality of our happiness, the quality of our lives is largely determined by the quality of our relationships.
I suppose things like social media, Facebook, Instagram, you're looking at everyone's beautiful life and you think, sure, where's
mine?
And
that's so counterintuitive too. It is anti-community. It is a false form of community. It's not that one-on-one interrelatedness, because the brain is actually calibrating to your skin change color. When you talk to somebody, I'm watching your skin color change. I'm listening to your breath. I'm watching how your eyes move. We all do this unconsciously. NLP just teaches you to do it consciously, so you can calibrate to a person more clearly.
And monitor the whole system.
And in social media, we don't have that. The brain cannot calibrate to a person as it needs to in order to feel like I'm part of your tribe. And feeling like you're part of a community, part of a tribe is healing. And we are losing that more and more with social media. And kids who are more ingrained in social media, they're not learning how to interact.
It from the start even.
And the rates of depression and suicide in young people is just escalating because we don't have what our brains are wired to have. So getting back to talking to people on a non-judgmental point of view, joining groups, of like-minded people, a book club, if anything, and finding help. There's lots of help to be found. Really is the start.
And you mentioned children not even learning the skills. Is there a space for NLP and children going to NLP practitioners?
Absolutely. There are practitioners who specialize in trauma, specifically with children. Children are subject in this day and age to the most horrific kinds of trauma, which we as adults just brush off. I mean, a lot of people have been in a hijacked situation or a house robbery, and we think children just get over it, but they don't. Those monsters become overpowering in their heads, and the chemical cascade that it causes in the body is very destructive.
And they have no ability to process that.
They don't know. We're not given the tools. So parents can do a lot. There's a lot we can teach parents how to help their children through trauma, but there are a lot of specialists who can very easily help families and help kids get through that without it causing illness and destructive behavior.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nikki. Always great to chat to you, and wonderful to get that information about NLP.
Thank you.
Wonderful.